Hello, everyone. Welcome to SportsBeat on WOUB. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host for today, Jake Collins, and joining with me at the desk is
Jack Zwiezinski,
Luke Schmitt,
Kasey Hill.
For this episode, we have plenty of news around OU sports that you don't want to miss out on, and even some professional sports, so let's check out today's topics. We begin with the mystery surrounding OU football after they end the regular season. We're then going to chat about OU volleyball for the final time to recap the MAC tournament. Then we dabble into men's and women's basketball where they have struggled. That's when we transfer into collegiate and professional sports where we have plenty of news to discuss. Then, of course, ending with Upset Watch and our weekly awards. SportsBeat starts right now. So everyone, welcome back to the table. And of course, we're leading off with football. The Bobcats did win their final regular season game 31-26. But before we cover anything with the game, we must talk about the elephant in the room. And with us, we have Bobcat Showcase reporter Grant Kiefer. And Grant, the biggest news that has absolutely struck OU sports is Ohio University has named John Hauser as interim head coach, and Brian Smith is on leave. We have not seen much information, but what was the information you found out on Tuesday about?
Yeah, so I've gotten investigative with it, and the way you said it is the way that the university posed it was John Hauser was the interim head coach. That was the announcement. You had to actually go click on their press release to go see in the bottom line, Brian Smith's been placed on leave. So that asked a lot of questions like, what? Like, this is out of nowhere. The first-year head coach that seemingly had a good year has just all of a sudden just been placed on leave out of complete nowhere, out of thin air, it felt like. So contacted his attorney yesterday and spoke to them, and they said that he got asked to leave in the middle of the workday on Monday, and that it was just completely out of the blue. No allegations have been brought against him at this time. No charges have been brought against him. He's currently on paid leave, according to his attorney. And according to the same attorney, they deny all wrongdoing. They're going to fight any allegations brought against him. So there's a lot of speculation online about health and things of that nature. But what I can report is this was Smith getting placed on leave by the university, according to his attorney, and he is getting paid through the process.
Yeah, the news has completely taken the whole university just back a little bit. Especially when we don't have the information, at least the hardcore information, to the public yet. Do you think there's going to be, there's just almost not a trust, or do you think some people are just in high demand to figure out the news? When do you think that the university will even potentially bring this up again?
Really, I think the university's silence is super duper strange, right? I think that with what the university's doing right now, is that with the head coaching cycle, right? You guys are probably going to talk about it later today. You got all sorts of coaching carousel moves happening around all of college football. Probably thought that national media maybe wouldn't touch this because of the nature of everything else happening around the sport. And just with the media around here, it's a lot of student coverage and just local coverage is kind of out of Columbus, it being in the Columbus TV market. So I don't think they really anticipated anyone to really press this. And really try and get on this issue. So I think that's a really interesting bit there. Every time we've reached out to the university, should have said this earlier, they declined for comment. Nothing from the university, nothing from the athletic department. I've contacted the athletic department a few times, still nothing. So it's very, very interesting on the way the university is handling this. If this was something that, with all the speculation, all these rumors that have been put out there, you would think that the university would at least say something, put out the fire a little bit, right? And there's just nothing right now. And the silence is deafening, I would say.
Did they direct you to his attorney, or did you reach out to him?
We reached out on our own to his attorney, his law firm, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like this just came out of nowhere, especially with the end of the season ramping and coming to the end and then going into preparing for the bowl game and waiting on everything.
Right.
It came out of nowhere, and they've said nothing about it, which is odd.
And the timing too, like you mentioned. Ohio got eliminated from the MAC championship contention last week on Friday. Had they not been eliminated, had there been a game this week against Western Michigan, what do you do about this? Is John Hauser coaching the game on Saturday? Wednesday, National Signing Day, early National Signing Day across all of college football. So that's really interesting timing. I don't believe that's affected anything signing-wise. As signings are starting to pile in, more and more commitments are starting to pile in. Ohio flipped someone on Tuesday night, so it's still full force ahead on the recruiting front at least. So it's good to see that this at least hasn't affected it.
And Grant, I think the hardest part about this whole story is kind of the lack of information we have and kind of what I've observed in the media, people just really speculating, like a lot of different things, different beat reporters are trying to get down on it. It's really the first time I've seen like an OU kind of sports story in the national coverage. And I think it's even harder for OU because, we're not a Power 4 school with such a big coaching change like this.
Right. I mean, last year we experienced it too. I mean, this is the third head coach right now, John Hauser, in OU in 2 years, right? I mean, almost a year to the day, Tim Albin took the head coaching job at Charlotte. And obviously that was a lot different scenario. We talked to Brian Smith when he was named interim 2 days after Albin officially signed with Charlotte, and there's no current scheduled press conference for Hauser right now. So it just shows how different this situation is and how they're handling it. But yeah, for a program that's been known for stability, Frank Solich hired in 2004, leaves in 2021. All of a sudden, you got 3 head coaches in 2 years. Like you said, I mean, I don't feel like you'd see this at the Power 4 level.
Yeah, and I mean, another thing, Grant, I mean, we've talked about so much of, well, now Brian Smith is gone, but of course, like you mentioned, John Hauser is stepping in. I mean, stylistically or schematically, I mean, do you expect any playing style changes? I mean, I know it's only going to be what potentially might be only the bowl game, but I mean, he's a defensive coordinator at heart. So, I mean, how is the Ohio football team going to play different?
Yeah, I mean, the last couple head coaches, it's been offensive-minded head coaches. Tim Albin was originally the OC. Brian Smith's originally the OC. But John Hauser's 100% qualified. That's why they gave him it. I mean, he was up there in the finalists for the job last year. He ended up getting named associate head coach out of it. This program does like stability. I don't think that they liked it. They've had to go through this, obviously. But they like having familiar faces at the helm. There's going to be transfers. That's the way the college football world works. But last year, before the bowl game, there wasn't a single transfer that declared before the Cure Bowl against Jacksonville State. I think they're hoping for something similar this year. So I think the best way of going about that is putting Hauser as the interim. If this ends up becoming a full-fledged head coaching search, obviously Hauser becomes the front runner. I mean, we've seen prior precedent. Smitty's named the interim last year. 2 weeks later, he gets hired right before the bowl game. So I don't know if it's going to end up getting to that point, but I would say past precedent, that would say that, yeah, Hauser's like the guy right now.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, especially I mean, it's always nice to have another coach kind of get head coaching experience just in case Brian Smith were to go off elsewhere, not in terms of maybe within the next couple of weeks, just even like years down the line, especially with Smith, it's nice to kind of have them in the pipelines, stuff like that. But in terms of, I mean, you kind of mentioned it, and we're going to talk about it at the table at some point later in this episode, but I guess just for the bowl game expectations, where do you think Ohio is set to end up in that bowl game? What location?
Yeah, I've heard some names powder out. Obviously, a lot of the bowl projections online have said Detroit's a possibility. We've heard a lot of salute the veterans down in Montgomery, Alabama. A return to the Arizona Bowl, we could see that. What an exciting game that was a few years ago against Wyoming and the walk-off TD and OT. And then Frisco Bowl's been mentioned a little bit as well. They played in that game, I believe it was 2017. So those are games you might see potentially. Idaho's up there as well. I wouldn't expect to go back to the Cure Bowl. That's usually like a MAC champ type bowl, one of those G5 versus G5, or usually have those conference champs. You might not get that this year too, with all these potentially. Sun Belt champ might make the playoffs. It's James Madison American champs got to make the playoffs. So bowl season will look a little bit different this year, and also a true MAC Bowl, the Bahamas Bowl, is not being played this year. They haven't announced a replacement for it yet, so I think it's up in the air. We'll find out Sunday afternoon by the latest of where Ohio's going to go.
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed the couple places that you said you would like to go are all warm, and you go to every single game. You're definitely looking for a
I
warm
missed my
spot.
first game on Friday, and it was 10 degrees, so that is the one to miss. I've only missed 3 games in 2 years, but yeah, a warm location. I think I would like that. I think the team would like it too. And then Parker Navarro too. We mentioned Arizona. He's from Arizona. If this is his last game, I think he would love a swan song in his home state.
Yeah, absolutely. And, of course, for everyone back home, this is Bobcat Showcase reporter Grant Kiefer. Grant, of course, family and friends here at WOUB, so thank you for joining us here at the table.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we'll send over Grant outside of the studio just because he's got a basketball game to cover tonight. Aren't you excited for that?
Yeah, big one. Got to win. I don't say must-win game in December a lot, but you got to beat the 0-9 Maine Black Bears.
Yes, absolutely. And we'll talk about the preview more. So we'll send you out of here, Grant. So thanks for joining us. But now for kind of just the next part of our OU football recap. We talked about it, or we kind of hinted at it at the start of our show, but we are going to talk about OU's win over Buffalo. Of course, this was last Friday. It was a very early game for a Friday matchup, and Ohio was able to beat Buffalo 31-26. 500 total yards of offense for the Bobcats, but it was absolutely freezing temperatures. But, I mean, guys, this run game has just been phenomenal. I mean, what was your reactions to seeing the run game dominate the way it did?
I mean, the run game has been arguably the highlight of the season this year. We've seen kind of when the temperature gets colder, that's definitely more of the focus, and that's not just an OU thing. You know, that happens with all football teams. But the run game has really gotten a lot better. You know, I remember week 1, first couple weeks of the season, we were kind of waiting for CA to get, back into the system that he was in prior at OU, and we kind of didn't really know what we'd see from Duncan Brune or who that next back would be to step up. And I really think this was a great moment to end the season, the regular season at least, where you have this much rushing yards against a Buffalo team that has kind of hung around in that game. Well, we'll talk probably more about that. But, this is just a big staple of the team.
Yeah, I mean, and to go more into the stats, what we've seen from this running game, like you mentioned, Luke, I mean, Navarro had 121 rushing yards. C.A. Bangura had 120. Duncan Brune added 69. And then, of course, that sweet fake punt by Jake Bruno. And it really helped build the Bobcats' offense, especially in that second quarter. The game was tied at the time, and the Bobcats scored 14 points pretty quickly after that fake punt. So it really generated a lot of offense. And, I mean, it just feels nice to see that Ohio ended the year strong offensively, especially in those cold weather games. The passing game wasn't that active. And what was probably the coldest, especially in Buffalo where there was snow all over the place. I mean, they cleared it off before the game, but, I mean, they still had 150 yards of passing offense. So, I mean, Navarro has just been phenomenal. He had 3 total touchdowns, but another thing that kind of worried me, and I don't know what changes or if it'll kind of lead into the bowl game, wherever they end up, but Ohio had 3 giveaways in the first half, and that's something that you never want to see. But, I mean, just what is the kind of like the reactions to this game, how well Ohio played?
I think they definitely need to be on their toes. I've been saying this last week, if they didn't lose that Ball State game, they have they beat Miami, who's in the MAC championship. So I think that's kind of been their Achilles heel this season is almost big explosive plays is when the team kind of gets flustered. And another thing is the team kind of they take opponent for advantage. I feel like a lot of times, they're not necessarily as locked into the current possession or drive as they should be. Oftentimes, they almost excel when they play behind sort of thing. And so I think going into whatever game they play in with the bowl, I mean, there's so much going into this game with the new coach. We'll talk about Parker's potential next year at eligibility. So I think this is going to be a big game to see if they can win against a non-MAC opponent.
Yeah, and it's going to be exciting to see where they end up. But in terms of just what came out of this game, Ohio finished the regular season at 8-4, a 6-2 record in conference slate. They were in a 3-way tie with Toledo and Miami, Ohio, but a little bit of controversy has kind of appeared in terms of the social media realm, and especially what's going on in the talk around the university, was the MAC title matchup is Western Michigan and Miami. Despite the 3-way tiebreaker of Miami, Ohio, and Toledo, Miami lost to both Toledo and Ohio in the regular season. What is your guys' reactions to that?
I'm confused.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to say it, honestly. I mean, and I understand, like, with ties and ending the season, especially tied, it's complicated where to go from there. But that just kind of feels backwards almost in every way. And I'm not even, like, as an Ohio University student saying that. I mean, I feel like, we didn't play Toledo this year. They didn't play Toledo, which is, that's fine.
It's the whole reason why this
reason
tiebreaker ended up being what it is. So, I know you guys were asking why exactly was the answer, and I'm sure the fans back home were thinking as well. It's because Ohio and Toledo did not play each other. So if Ohio and Toledo played each other, it would have technically been a round robin of head-to-head matches. But The one thing that's weird is, and it says this in the MAC rulebook, if you're in a three-way tie with two teams and you beat both teams that you're tied with, you automatically make it. So you would think the opposite scenario. If you lost to both teams, then you're eliminated, and then the process would reset for the remaining teams. But the one thing I realized when I was doing research is, one, the MAC conference doesn't do that, and there's only two conferences in college football where they have that scenario. If you lose to both teams, then you're eliminated from the scenario. And it's only the SEC and the ACC. So kind of seeing that scenario played out. And the other reason why Miami made it was because the common opponents, once they had to go down to the next level, and that ended up being Western Michigan. Miami beat Western Michigan. Toledo and Ohio lost to Western Michigan. So, I mean, what are your guys' reactions? Do you kind of expect this to kind of push the MAC to try and change the tie-breaking procedure?
Yeah, I think it should. I think the fact that conferences have almost different rules is super confusing for the fan and consumer. What's more confusing is, this was talked about, especially for OU's perspective. OU had a much stronger out-of-conference schedule against Ohio State. Miami did play Rutgers, but, that was talked about, when this news broke that Miami would make the bowl game. And I just think that's an interesting format where, it's almost not considered, and it's more so what's in the MAC rulebooks determine how this game happens. And again, I think with the MAC rulebook being different from others is just a confusing thing, especially when there's already so many other conferences in this Division I level.
Yeah, and I think another thing that makes it tricky is, I even saw in the Mountain West, they had a 4-team tiebreaker, and they went to computer points analytics to split that up.
Yeah.
Some people, I even heard Kirk Herbstreit say this on Pat McAfee's show, he thinks this should just be strictly college football playoff rankings, and then that would also be determined by, even those unranked teams, who the CFP would rank in that order. So that could be an answer.
Yeah.
But I think the best answer for it, and we see it in the Sun Belt Conference. Sun Belt's the only conference with divisions, and when it came to the divisions, you always played every team in your division. So you could easily figure out.
There's always a head-to-head.
Yeah, but now we have all these conferences where, they have 12 to 18 teams, and they're overcrowded, and they're fighting for 2 spots, and not everybody gets to play each other. So, there is answers to go about it, but, in terms of the way college football's going with the conference realignment, they're probably not going to figure it out anytime soon. But in terms of, I guess, the bowl game predictions, we kind of chatted about it with Grant earlier. Where do you think Ohio will end up? Do you guys think they'll play a group of 5 team like Grant mentioned, or do you think even a Power 4 team we could see?
I think it'll probably be a group of 5 team. This feels ending similarly to how it was my freshman year, where they played Georgia Southern in the bowl game. Another group of 5 team. This one from the Sun Belt. But I think it'll be similar to that, where the way their season ended with some shaky losses. That'll be the type of team they play.
I know CBS Sports Bowl Game Predictions has Ohio and Penn State. If anyone's been an active listener, they know that that's going to be wild for me.
Yeah, especially for you being a Penn State fan and an Ohio University student. But Jack, that was a matchup our freshman year, and it was a blowout.
It was. No, I was looking. I was actually going to say I'm looking at right now collegefootballnews.com, which not the most reliable or trustworthy source, but they currently are projecting Ohio to play Fresno State in the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl.
Oh,
which
I would love that.
I would
That's a good
love for
matchup.
that. I think that'd be a
Dog.
great matchup. I'm locked for that one. I'm here for it.
Because that's where, like Grant mentioned, that's where it was for our freshman year when they played. Who did they play? They played. I can't believe I'm blanking.
I'm pulling it up because I
It's not
can't
Wyoming,
believe.
right?
What did you say?
It's not Wyoming, right? Was
No,
it before?
or it might have been Wyoming. But, anyway, until Jack gets an answer, we'll go on to the next portion of it. Last week, Ohio University quarterback.
Bang!
What is it,
Luke
Wyoming?
Schmitt.
Grant-
The Wyoming Cowboys.
Grant said it
They
during.
That was
won
an
30
overtime
to
game.
27 in
Yeah.
OT
Yeah.
in
Oh, he
the
did say
Arizona
that.
That
Bowl.
was a
He
good
did say
game. I do
that.
remember that.
I'm so impressed right now. Like, genuinely, that's a crazy pull.
But
To be
then,
like, I think it's this, and just spot on. Anyway, Sorry, we're getting off track here.
I know, but now we'll go to the next news, and I like the predictions that we have. I mean, those are great spots. Arizona, Myrtle Beach, potentially facing Penn State and Detroit's
It's
another
game
good answer.
above sports.
Yeah, that would be in
Was
Detroit.
it used to be like the Motor City or something? Did they
Yeah.
like rebrand
Yeah.
that? Okay.
It used to have a different name. I
Yeah.
can't remember what it was. But in terms of going back to the news within OU football, and our final bit of news is OU quarterback Parker Navarro has requested the NCAA for a 7th year of eligibility to return to college football. He had his redshirt year in 2020, his first year with UCF, and 2020 was also the year that they granted COVID year for students. And we kind of believe that this year was the COVID year. We're not quite sure, but Navarro has had 6 years of being on a football roster, and he is requesting for his 7th. Guys, what's our reaction to this?
I think this is crazy. Let the boys play. I think it'll be interesting to see what this, like, if this is granted, will he stay? I'm interested to see how the Brian Smith situation plays in that. You know, if Brian Smith is gone, will that affect Navarro's decision to come back or, test it? I don't know. Navarro's might have proven enough to be like a Curtis Rourke, where he can make that jump to the Power 4 level and, maybe lead a team in like the Big 12 or something like that. But it'll be interesting to see how Brian Smith plays into this decision.
I was about to say, because, that would be a veteran quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be his 7th year on a football roster, and I would think he would be sought after for a temporary NIL transfer, like you mentioned. So, he's from Arizona. Those programs out west could be looking for a player, and if they need somebody who's more of a runner archetype, Navarro would definitely be a perfect fit. I don't know. Does anybody else have any say on, is it unnecessary for the 7th year, or I guess just what's your take on it?
I think it's time to graduate and move on.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
You love the game, but 7 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, that's when it really gets into challenging the NCAA eligibility status and whatnot, and this is definitely going to be something that would be a point of topic. I mean, we've seen players, I think Miami University in Florida had like a 9-year tight end. Yes, absolutely. And it's just crazy to think about, but I mean, regardless of how it goes, we of course wish the best for Navarro because he's been entertaining in these last 4 years for Ohio University, especially these last 2.
Yeah.
I could see him making that jump. I could see him staying. I mean, he's been, especially with on the Pat McAfee show, like with Timothy Chalamet. I mean, they a lot of eyes have been turned on to Ohio University's football, and I think part of that is definitely because of his play and how he's been doing. So I could see him staying, try and maybe garner some more media attention, or leave, try and go somewhere else, and maybe try and sneak his way into the draft, something like that, potentially.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe or one of those the summer football leagues like the USFL or potentially even in the CFL, which Ohio definitely has connections to the CFL as being like a pipeline school. So it's going to be interesting to see. But now on to our next sport. And the last time we talked about this team, we are going to go and advance to OU volleyball. We were previewing them for the MAC tournament, and the university was pretty hopeful for maybe a strong run with how good they've been playing in conference play. But the journey ended at the first stop. OU lost to BG in 4 sets. I mean, what occurred in this loss?
This was a tough loss for them for multiple reasons, because they were the 3 seed in this and Bowling Green was the 6 seed. So at first glance, it's like, oh, they were supposed to beat them. But Bowling Green had so much going for them, honestly, in this matchup. The OU had the better conference overall when they really started to turn it up, but Bowling Green had the better overall year. So they're kind of more built as a team. And what also really helped Bowling Green is they hosted the tournament this year, because I saw that, if you win the MAC, you host it. So that was a huge advantage for a team, especially as an underdog in the tournament. And, looking at this Bowling Green team, Bobcat Showcase reporter Mark Goldstein reported that, Bowling Green is almost the opposite of this OU team. They're an experienced team. They were the preseason favorite, and, they had a lot of injuries. And comparing that to OU, young team playing Cinderella spoiler all season long. So this was a tough matchup for OU, naturally playing, a different sort of team that they're not necessarily used to style of play. They lost the first 2 sets, and going down 2-0 in any sport, even like a wild card game in MLB, is just a tough mountain to climb. And In that second set, they really started to turn it on. It seemed like they were able to score, at will, and they won 25-19. And even in that set, Bowling Green did win 13-10, but OU really went on a tear to win. The problem is because they were down that 2-0, it just got away from them in that third set. Bowling Green would win 25-17 and beat them in the series. It was close in that game, tied at 11, but Bowling Green just went on a tear. They had two players who were incredible, and Lauren Hovey and Jessica Andrews, who were just completely dominant. Andrews was an All-MAC first-team player, so they're playing against incredible talent, and Hovey had 18 kills, which was more than any player on OU. So just incredible performance from Bowling Green to pull off that upset in the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the seeding, they were technically the underdog, but I think, you mentioned, they were preseason favorites. They hosted the tournament. Bowling Green, they just had all those little aspects and factors to kind of give them that little boost. But even then, Bowling Green ended up losing in the next round to Western Michigan, and then Western Michigan lost to Toledo, and we kind of didn't expect Toledo to make this run, but we were expecting more Ball State. I mean, what were your opinions on the, Toledo winning the MAC?
Toledo just played absolute spoiler. I mean, when I was doing research for this game and looking at all the All-MAC awards, Ball State had 4 girls in All-MAC awards. They won Coach of the Year. They had the best record in conference and regular season with their one loss to OU. So nice job, Bobcats. But, this was just a dominant Ball State team. They have been amazing in volleyball for the last couple years. But this Toledo team just played absolute spoiler. I mean, they won 3-2, and the last 3 sets were the same score, 28-26, going into extra sets plus past 25. It's just insane scenes out of the MAC, never disappointing in any sport. And this Toledo team dropped the first set against Western Michigan in the finals, coming off of that crazy series against Ball State, but they won the next 3 in a row to win the MAC, and they are going to play Indiana in the national tournament.
Yeah, so, I mean, of course, we're a little bummed out Ohio didn't, run the table in the MAC tournament. But in terms of just being a MAC representative, Toledo, good luck for them and their volleyball team to compete against a Big Ten opponent like Indiana. But in terms of just the recap for this year, I mean, we've seen the ups and downs. I mean, we questioned this volleyball team after what was a horrendous start and something that they were going to break records for the longest losing streak. Ended up being a pretty strong season. I mean, I guess what are the expectations now from us here at the table and what we should expect out of this team for next year?
Bailey Blair won All-MAC Freshman of the Year. She is a freshman, and she was this team's shining star through most of this season. So I'm really curious to see how her ceiling goes from here because she's already MAC Freshman Player of the Year. So I'm super excited to see her journey. And a lot of the other ones, Emily Waddell was also on MAC first team. So OU has that recognition. And this was a year, they were 7th in the preseason poll. They started the season 2-14 and started MAC play 0-4, and they jumped all the way to the 3rd seed in the tournament. So they have plenty to be proud of for this season. I've harped on this team all year long as they've gotten better. And just an incredible performance as the season went on from this young team with a new roster.
Yep, and absolutely. And another thing, of course, head coach Kenzie Brinkman is going to be the official head coach. Of course, she got promoted from interim, so it's nice to see kind of Slade Larshide, the athletic director, the new athletic director, kind of make his first major decision in terms of coaching. And it's a hire that I think a lot of people are going to appreciate, and especially a young volleyball team that now has potential, especially with how they ended the year. But to go on to OU men's basketball, Jack, we're going to throw it to you. I mean, this Sunshine Slam, they were at the neutral site. I mean, it was a 4-team tournament, and Ohio is just on a lengthy losing streak. What did we see from the Bobcats?
Yeah, so they played the George Mason Patriots last Monday, or not last Monday, but it was November 24th. I'm getting the break in my head. They lost 92-69. It was a rough game. They were back yet again. The story we're seeing, they were out-rebounded. I mean, I've got the numbers here. It was 39-36, so not horrible, not as bad as we've seen. And I feel like you have to take into account with that, though, that George Mason is a tall team. I went and looked. Their starters in order of height are 6'2", 6'5", 6'6", 6'8", and 6'11". So that's a big team, and Ohio's not really that big of a team. I mean, that's part of the loss. The biggest thing, though, that I at least noticed was the turnovers. You have got to hold on to the ball. Slow down if you need. If you guys are moving too fast, it's resulting in you guys losing the ball. Because, I mean, 12 turnovers to George Mason's 6. 7 resulted in steals for them and scoring opportunities. But also we have to take into account this is a good George Mason team. I mean, they haven't lost yet. Their closest win was a 6-point win. That's the closest they've come to being knocked off from winning a game, which, I mean, is just impressive.
Yeah, I mean, and like you mentioned, George Mason's was that good. They're still undefeated, and they won the Sunshine Slam because of it when they were able to, I believe, beat Florida Atlantic. But in the consolation game, we throw it over to OU playing Loyola Marymount. I mean, the result was a little bit better in terms of just the score differential, but Ohio still lost by double digits in this game. I mean, what was the breakdown from this game differently?
I'm going to sound like a broken record here. Rebound. Rebound. Learn how to box out. It's like 40. They were out-rebounded 47-38.
I mean, those numbers are disgusting.
It's
I mean,
horrible.
And they've been consistent as well. That's the other main problem.
That's the worst part. Is it's not like one game they'll go and they'll have 50 or like 48 rebounds, and then the next game they'll have 22. They're consistently hovering around this 36 rebounds per game mark, which is just not cutting it for this team. They're giving all these other teams opportunities for second chance points, come up off a fast break, get it up, score. It's a problem that this team is going to need to work on. It's the biggest glaring problem I can see so far. Though, to go a little more positive with it, I do like seeing 12 steals from Ohio.
I know. There's just a bunch of things defensively, and it's never consistent. It's like they do good on one aspect on defense. I even think in that Loyola Marymount game, I think defensively the shooting numbers were like pretty even for the most part. But even then, when it comes to, or even I think the Bethune-Cookman game as well, like they're playing closer to these teams, but it's always something. It's always the rebounding. It's always the other team shooting 50 to 60%, or it's just the giveaways by Ohio. So in terms of course, we know Ohio's set to play Maine tonight. Maine is winless. This is a game that Ohio's kind of expected to take advantage of this opportunity. I mean, what is the just quick, brief answer on how Ohio should go about this?
They need, first and foremost, they need to determine the flow of the game. They host Maine. They're outscoring Maine, out-rebounding Maine, same amount of assists, forcing about the same amount of turnovers. They just need to focus on their defense and playing consistently, their shot selection, and dictating the flow. I think if they can do all that and their defense can help at least limit TJ Beal, who's Maine's leading scorer, leading player at the moment, they can easily win this game. It's like Grant said, this is a must-win game for them.
Yes, absolutely. And then another game that they have this week is Ohio is inviting Marshall to the Convo this Saturday. And it's kind of like an interesting matchup. These two schools used to be rivals, but, I mean, Marshall has had a pretty strong start so far. Give us a quick preview on what this Marshall team looks like.
Yeah, I mean, this Marshall team going through is a little scary. They've only lost to the Virginia Cavaliers and the Lipscomb Bison. The scariest aspect for this Bobcats team that's had shaky defense throughout the season is Marshall's ability to shoot from range. They're shooting about 37.9% from three. Over three players are shooting over 40% at 47, 42, and 42. Another two hitting or going over 35%. So this is a team that is dangerous the further back they are from the basket. They need to work on locking that defense in, getting it at least semi-consistent, and trying to hold them from the perimeter, play to their strengths. They're a little shaky with the three ball. Don't shoot as many, you're just going to give Marshall more opportunities. Stick to inside the arc, what you guys can do and you can do well. And then through all that, you do that, you limit Wyatt Fricks, who's 6'10", can score from anywhere. The rebounding game will have to be dialed. But if they can at least get the perimeter defense and the defense as a whole a little more consistent, I think they'll be able to compete to a solid level.
And it also makes it so tricky that, like we've talked about, this is a smaller OU lineup, so it doesn't exactly fit that small ball style, which is going to be very tricky for Ohio as they'll take on both Maine and Marshall this week. But now to go to OU women's basketball. Much like the men's basketball team, women's team has struggled recently, but not to the extent of the men's team. I mean, Kasey, women's team is now 3-3. What do we see from the recent games?
Yep, so that was a game Ohio traveled to Davidson for their 6th game of this season. It was close, and I would say relatively evenly matched, but the Bobcats did lose. They now have a 3-3 record, like you said. The Bobcats did better off the glass than they did in previous games, which is something we wanted to see improvement. Last time we talked about this team, 26 rebounds and a really nice block from Aaliyah McWhorter. Redshirt freshman Bella Ronaldo was Ohio's leading scorer with 15 points. The score was tied multiple times through this game, and Ohio went into halftime leading, actually. But once the third quarter started, it was mostly downhill from there. Davidson was easily able to pull away. Even though the Bobcats outscored Davidson in the fourth quarter, so they picked it back up in the fourth, it was just not enough to get build back what they lost in the third, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it seems like, it's always nice to see that those transfers have consistently performed now, week in and week out. You're 6 games into the season. A 3-3 record is honestly pretty good from what we've seen from the women's basketball team these past couple years. But in terms for their next matchup against UIC, it was a tough loss for the women's team against Davidson, but how would they look to bounce back as they play UIC?
Yeah, University of Illinois Chicago is coming to the Convo December 15th. UIC is currently 4-4, but they do have a much stronger schedule that I looked when I looked into that. They've played 2 Big Ten teams, so they have a much stronger schedule than the Bobcats. Ohio and UIC have only played each other twice, and UIC has won both of those games, which it's hard to compare. That's not much of a stat line. To more easily compare these teams, UIC beat Ball State, who is by 2 points, who is ranked 2nd in the MAC right now. So that's kind of helps with the comparison from MAC standings. Jessica Carruthers is their leading scorer, averaging 17+ points per game, as a 5'7" guard. So. Yeah, small girls can ball.
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty impressive numbers. It's going to be interesting to see how the women's team will look to bounce back from their loss against a pretty solid UIC squad. Yeah. It's going to be fun to check it out in terms of the results for that. But now to go into our next segment, to continue with college sports, we are winding down on college football. The regular season has concluded. We've seen an awesome rivalry week with major implications. And we got to start with OSU and Michigan Ohio State beating Michigan for the first time since 2019, 27-9, doing so in Ann Arbor. Bobcats seemed like they dominated the whole game, but it really felt like Michigan took control early. What did you guys kind of think about this? Was there any, were you anticipating or feeling the worry from Ohio State in those first couple minutes?
I kind of was, yeah. I, at least as an Ohio State fan, was getting worried, especially with the that Sayan interception off the second pass attempt. I was just like that. I saw that and I was just like, no, like that's not what you want to see. But I feel like as we can see, he kind of brought it back from that. I was pretty I didn't want to say anything or really talk about like, okay, they're going to win until they got up to that 27 mark. And I was like, okay, at this point, there's not enough time left in the game. I feel confident about it because no matter how well OSU plays, you can't deny that they just have not been able to get over that hump, especially, like you said, since 2019. That's just a horrible run from them, especially in such a big rivalry like this, for them to be able to finally get over the hump. We saw Bo Jackson really step up there. I really liked what I was seeing from him. All the receiver core went off. I was excited for it. It was a good game.
And you could see the relief in Coach Day's face in that post-game interview and just all the challenges that him and his family have faced for the reasons of not being able to beat Michigan these last couple of years. So, Ohio State looks to prove themselves to still be the top team in college football. But for one of the other top teams in college football, number 3 Texas A&M lost to their rival, number 16 Texas Longhorns. The Longhorns ruined the Aggies' perfect season. Longhorns are now 9-3, but for Texas A&M, this game was kind of eye-opening. And in my honest opinion, I'm going to ask for your guys' reaction, is I just don't think Texas A&M is that legitimate of a playoff contender to everybody else. I mean, the Notre Dame win's great. LSU and Missouri wins are decent. But in terms of their records against teams that they played in conference play, those teams, those 7 teams that they beat, their conference record combined is 12-44. I mean, Auburn, Mississippi State, South Carolina were all 1-7. Arkansas was 0-8 in conference play. And 3 of those 4 opponents I just said were one-possession victories for A&M. I mean, what is our reaction, especially since A&M just lost to Texas?
Yeah, I haven't been high on A&M much this year, and I was trying to give them grace because, they were the number 3 team. But, I watched this Texas A&M game in length, and you could see the issues on the field. Marcel Reed, he's been great for them this season, but he had some costly turnovers, and Texas just looked like they were moving the ball a lot better. I am worried for this team coming down the stretch, especially because Alabama and Georgia, they kind of started off slow this season, but they're right there at, I think, 4-5 right now or close to that range. So I am worried for them coming down the stretch, especially with how deep the SEC is and compared to some other great teams like Ohio State this year.
And for the rest of the games, and especially like you mentioned, how deep the SEC is, I'm going to quickly list that Alabama survived Auburn once again in a tough environment at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Vanderbilt crushed Tennessee, and then for the other games outside the SEC, Oregon survived Washington, Miami crushed Pittsburgh, and SMU decided that they did not want to play in the ACC title game again.
Not this year.
And so they lost to Cal 38-35. But now
Cal.
kind of go into the preview of this. We have 6 conference title games with major college football playoff implications. And we have number 1 versus number 2 for the Big Ten title. What is your guys' reactions, or what are you expecting from this?
Ohio State by 1,000,000. I am so excited. We haven't got a chance to really talk about Ohio State much on the show this year because I feel like they've been so good. Julian Sand is quickly becoming one of my favorite Buckeyes in recent years. Just when I watch him play, he's so consistent when he gets in that zone. You talked about the interception he threw against Michigan, but if you compare his performance and stat line to Bryce Underwood's, Bryce was supposed to be touted as a better player freshman coming in than Sand, and Sand has just blown my mind this year with what he can do. I'm excited to see how Sand matches up against Mendoza because, Mendoza really buried Purdue when they played in rivalry week last week, but that is Purdue, and Ohio State just beat Michigan. So I'm interested to see how those teams play coming off those 2 very different wins.
And especially, Ohio State hasn't lost to Indiana since, I believe, the late 80s. So historically...
No one had lost to Indiana since the 90s. Before this, all of a sudden, they decided they wanted to wake up.
And it's all because of Kurt Signetti,
Yeah,
who's
he
been
woke up.
just one of the most impactful coaching hires probably within the last 40 years of college football, just because of how he's been able, like you mentioned, Indiana's never been a great program.
Yeah,
and
we've
now,
just always
now
considered
they're,
Indiana, Illinois to be like the more bottom tier
Yeah.
of the Big Ten if we're going to say that. And all of a sudden, it's not. And all of a sudden, Penn State
Now-
and Indiana have switched
I
places.
was
And now
about
all
to
of a
say,
sudden,
yeah.
I have to.
I almost wanted to say it, but I didn't want to
That's all right.
throw a subtle diss at you. But in terms of the other games, like we mentioned, Indiana, of course, 12-0. But for the other games in college football, Georgia and Alabama get a rematch. Georgia's only loss is to Bama. And then Texas Tech and BYU rematch. And BYU's only loss is Texas Tech. But even then, BYU and Alabama, I believe, are 9th and 11th in the college football playoff rankings. And, if these 2 teams lose, especially Alabama, who's in that top 10, is Alabama out of the college football playoffs?
I don't know. This is a different story than Texas, who would share the same record at that point. Who was Alabama's losses? It was Oklahoma and...
It would have been Oklahoma and, oh my gosh.
Is it Georgia? Did they lose to Georgia?
No, they beat Georgia. It would have been Oklahoma and, I was about to say, Jack, get on the research of it.
Oh, I'm here.
Regardless, even if they lose this, I like their losses better than a team like Texas. That's a 3-loss team, but we've seen a 3-loss team, I think, before with one of the Jalen Milroe years.
You said for Alabama?
Yeah, for Bama.
They broke
it
into the
was
playoff.
Oklahoma and Florida State week 1.
Florida
Oh,
State, yes.
Oh, yeah.
So
And
31-17
Alabama, feels like
loss.
you can't count them out. The committee loves Alabama. They're always there. Even if they lose, I wouldn't be surprised if they take one of the later spots in the playoff.
And then another thing that we have to talk about in terms of the college football playoffs is this ACC title. And Casey, I remember we were talking about it, or you guys were talking about it at the table, and you said the absolute weird nightmare scenario would be somehow Duke getting in, and now Virginia is set to play Duke. I mean, what is the reactions to this?
I really hope Duke doesn't get in. That just kind of makes me upset. It makes me think like we genuinely need to rethink the style and the way the committee does this. I'm confused.
I think the biggest problem with this scenario was the fact that all the really good ACC teams lost multiple games.
Yeah.
I mean, Clemson was supposed to be here.
Well,
at this point.
Clemson was the
that was long gone.
Clemson was the preseason favorite, but then we talk about the fact that Georgia Tech just had to win their final conference game.
Yes.
Southern Methodist, SMU, had to win their final conference game, and it's like all the chips fell. And they ended up making it a 5-team tiebreaker.
Yeah.
And somehow, out of the 5 teams, it's the one team that's 7-5 versus the 3 or 4 teams that are still ranked. I mean, Georgia Tech, Miami, I believe. There's just so many teams involved. SMU is involved in that. Pittsburgh's involved in that. It just became a whole debacle of a situation. And now Duke is kind of like the black sheep of this whole slate. It's because now, if Duke were to win, then the winner of the James Madison-Troy game, if JMU were to win, then James Madison might be in it. So I guess for the final matchup, and what was originally supposed to be the only group of 5 bid, the American Championship between Tulane and North Texas seems to be like a playoff play-in game, which is going to be super fun to watch.
I just hope Duke's happy sitting somewhere thinking like, yeah, people are talking about us only because statistically they couldn't pick anyone else.
Yeah. I mean,
I really hope that they're like thinking like, man, we got lucky.
I know. I mean, just the way the chips fell. I mean, the odds had to have been stacked so against them like 3 or 4 weeks ago. And just even the thought about it, the whole committee or the whole social media realm was laughing at the possibility, and now it's reality.
Yeah.
But now to go quickly into the biggest headlines in sports, Lane Kiffin with our Read and React segment, Lane Kiffin has stunned the college football world. He is going from Ole Miss to LSU. The exit's official. He is leaving the Rebels before the college football playoff, and he's making about $13 million a year for 7 years. But Lane has never been a coach that has stayed longer than 3 or 4 years at every single school. What's our reaction to this?
He said that he wanted to stay out the playoffs, and I know their athletic director kind of hit the boot right then and there, and Lane Kiffin's gonna, turn that narrative against him and be like, they kicked me out.
Yeah.
They didn't. They wanted you out now because they didn't want you to poach every single person in the building before you left.
And we've seen Virginia Tech do this right now.
I'm mad. So if you're gonna decide, if you're gonna start the rumors that I want to leave, either do it after the playoffs or don't expect to coach, because you don't get to just stand there and know that you don't actually care because you're leaving, but still I want a title. You know what I mean? You just leave or get off.
Especially since he's mainly going for LSU for probably more NIL support.
Yeah. Probably,
historically a way better program than Ole Miss, but I really thought that he was going to stay at Ole Miss, and I'm kind of disappointed because it would have been nice to see another new program come back to life as a consistent performer, like we've seen with Indiana, who's now a national title contender, and I was hoping Ole Miss would do the same. But for our next story, I mean, we are going to have to talk about Ben Johnson and this Bears team as we go back to our next Read and React, or go to our next Read and React story. Chicago Bears are atop the NFC. Mike Sando of The Athletic is questioning how good is Chicago, and has Ben Johnson almost made his case for Coach of the Year? What's our Read and React to that?
I think never in a million years at the beginning of the season would I have said that I thought the Bears would be atop the NFC. Honestly, even looking and watching them earlier in the season too, I wouldn't have said that either. And I think it really does come down to, they're playing a little better. Caleb Williams is looking solid. But I think the biggest thing, it really is Ben Johnson's case. I mean, he came in, turned it around, and they went from being a laughable, franchise to going into one of the top of the NFC and, genuinely, as of right now, looking like they will at least make a push in the playoffs. I think it's genuinely incredibly impressive, and I think Ben Johnson's making a case for Coach of the Year 100%.
I think he'll win Coach of the Year. I hate to be a naysayer here. I don't love the Bears' schedule. The best teams they've played, I mean, they just beat the Eagles. The Eagles have kind of been on the struggle bus. They beat the Steelers. Again, Steelers are kind of falling a bit behind. It's really going to come down to these last – they haven't played the Packers yet, so 2 Packers games, one more Lions game, and a Niners game. So it's really going to come down to the end of the season. You know, I've seen Bears fans social media say somehow the Bears are going to blow it. They did lose to the Lions earlier in the season, so I'm really curious to see how the season ends. I think Ben Johnson's absolutely put in his case for Coach of the Year, but I'm interested to see how that translates to the end of the season and postseason, because we all know the last time the Bears were here was, I think, when Cody Parkey missed the kick against Philadelphia in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, Chicago hasn't been a staple in the playoffs, but now they might reappear. But to continue to talk about the NFL, I mean, we are now going to go to the Bengals and Browns segment, and for the first time, Joe Burrow's back from injury, and Jamar Chase is back from his suspension, and man, this Cincinnati team looked good. What did we see from them in their Thanksgiving game against the Ravens?
So Bengals took on the Ravens Thursday night for that Thanksgiving special. Like you said, Cincinnati's got their guy back. Joe Burrow made his return to the field after his turf toe injury. Jumping right into the divisional game, Burrow threw 261 yards and 2 touchdowns. So that's a great entrance. The Bengals offense made sure to take advantage of 5 Ravens turnovers. Along with that, Cincy's defense showed out. They shut out Lamar Jackson in the fourth quarter. Those 5 turnovers, like I mentioned, 3 of them were forced fumbles in the first half. So Bengals defense was laying on the pressure as well as their offense. Joe Burrow sticking with his main man, Jamar Chase, who was also back, like you said. Chase ended the game with 7 receptions and 110 yards and no spitting.
That's the most important part.
The Bengals take the road win, snapping the Ravens' 5-game win streak. That was a 32-14 wins. All I have to say is you can't expect to win a game with a horrible amount of turnovers to Ravens.
No, especially, I mean, there was even that one catch with Isaiah Likely, who fumbled right before he entered the end zone. And, I mean, the Ravens have looked so good, especially Lamar coming back from injury. But, I mean, this title race is heating up. But for the other Ohio team, Cleveland just had another ugly game against San Fran. They're just inching closer to elimination.
Yeah. The Browns took on 49ers at home this past weekend. Shedeur Sanders making his 2nd game start. And with that, a mediocre performance, I would say, in my opinion. However, the Browns fans are expecting more from him. I'm questioning, is Shedeur really the guy? He went 16-25 with his pass attempts. Myles Garrett, who had his 19th sack of the game. But his offense needs to be using that field position and the opportunities that Myles Garrett is providing. I would be livid if I was Cleveland's defense. 49ers defense practically shut down Shedeur Sanders and the offense, only allowing a touchdown and a 2-point conversion.
And, another just unfortunate performance from the Browns, and especially when you consider, like you mentioned, his 19th sack of the season. Myles Garrett is the clear favorite for the Defensive Player of the Year, but he's not going to be able to play in the postseason if Cleveland continues to be this program.
I think it's really telling they have number 1 for DPOY and the number 1 option for Defensive Rookie of the Year, and they suck.
Yeah.
It's sad.
I mean, it's just not. Quinshon Judkins been great, but
maybe defense doesn't win championships.
I've been watching the games. It doesn't.
But for, I guess, the next games, just give us a quick preview for both teams, Casey. Cincinnati got a big game against Buffalo.
Yep, 8-4 Buffalo, hosting 4-8 Bengals, AFC division game. Bills are currently holding the last spot in the playoffs. So they're probably wanting to extend that column, maybe give them a better spot. On the other hand, Bengals are trying to get in, keep their chances alive. I'm expecting good things for this game. I think both teams play entertaining football.
And then for Cleveland, this is an super ugly game against one of the worst teams in the league. Who do they got?
1-11 Tennessee Titans will make a stop in Cleveland, and then to take on Ohio's 3-9 Browns. This game is between the bad and the worst. I really don't know what else to say about it. I feel like this could be good for the Titans because they might actually be competing against someone that they could have a chance of
same level
beating.
with?
Yeah.
You say no, you can say it.
Sorry.
You turned.
kinda gave me a
you
look.
turned and looked. I was waiting to see if you were gonna rip it or not.
Sorry.
But now for
You're right.
before the next Cleveland sports team, we're going to quickly cover the Cavs, so quickly get us through it. Jack, I mean, this team has been a little bit up and down recently, but they're still a strong contender in the East.
Yeah, I mean, they've been struggling a bit with the on and off status with Darius Garland. They've gone 500 since the last time we've checked in on them. They beat the Pacers twice and the Clippers, lost to the Raptors, Hawks, and Celtics. They lost by 2 to the Celtics. Darius Garland returned. He dropped 21, 3, and 8. That's a stat line I like to see. Mobley stepped up as the leading scorer in that game, 27, 14, 4. He's the current second option, averaging about 20 points per game, 18.9. It's great. Jalen Tyson stepped up. They're passing, huge strong suit. They lost by 7 to Atlanta in a cup game, which took both the Hawks and Cavs out of the cup contention. Donovan Mitchell with a casual 42-point game. Incredible. Darius Garland, 15, 10 assists. Mobley, 20, 14 rebounds. Hunter with 16. These guys are stepping up. They just really couldn't stop Jalen Johnson and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Okongwu, Johnson, Rissiker, NAW, and Dyson Daniels all played well. This is a Hawks team that at least is starting to heat up. This week, though, they face a stretch of 3 home games before they'll travel to face the Wizards next Friday. The night that we're recording, December 3rd, they play the Blazers. This team started to click. The Cavs will just need to play their basketball. They'll be missing Jarrett Allen and Sam Merrill, which will be rough, but Jalen Tyson's really stepped up in that 6-man position.
And, of course, they also have the Spurs and the Warriors. So out of those 2 games, Jack, I mean, which game should Cavs fans really be keened in on between those 2?
I think it's the Spurs team. It's always just with Wembanyama. Currently, the Warriors are struggling. They're 11-11. They're missing Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler. They both should be back by the time the Cavs play them. But I think the biggest thing is the Cavs with the Spurs with Jarrett Allen out. They will have to limit Wembanyama. I mean, it's hard to do. It sounds almost impossible. Though I see them running with Allen out, probably Mobley at the center and Wade at the power forward position. The 2 of them will need to be anchors in the paint. Let DeAndre Hunter kind of handle the perimeter. You can trade off with him, Jalen Tyson, Naquan Tomlin. You need to keep somebody on everybody because Wembanyama can shoot threes,
Everything.
He can dunk, he can pass, rebound. They really need to limit him down. And just, I would say, keep your 2 bigs in the paint, keep them anchored around the rim as much as you can. Let everybody else kind of handle the perimeter. If somebody gets past, pass over to your bigs.
Yeah, I mean, he is an athlete that is just out of this world. I mean, just the things he could do at his size is unbelievable.
It's incredible.
It's unbelievably incredible. And the Spurs are a really fun team to watch now. But for now, our final segment of the night, of the episode, it's Upset Watch, where we pick our favorite underdogs across all sports. I had to go back and see what we did in our last Upset Watch selections, and we went 0 for 4 once again. So, I mean, it's been a rough showing, but Kasey, start us off. What do you got?
Yeah, I've got some college men's basketball for you. I'm going Northwestern over Wisconsin at 7.5. This actually starts at the time of this recording, I think about 2 hours from now. Both teams are 5-2. They're both coming off a loss. They have extremely similar stats. I'm surprised that the spread was this far. I'm just feeling like it's a coin flip, and I'll take the chance.
And then for Luke, you have a college sports selection. Kasey had college basketball. You got college football, and it's a pretty big game. What do you got?
I'm shooting for the moon here. I'm taking the Cougars over the Red Raiders in what will be the Big 12 championship game. These 2 teams played just a couple weeks ago, and Tech handed them a 29-7 loss. I was talking with my cousin who goes there over break. I really like what BYU is doing. They beat TCU and Cincinnati, 2 respectable teams this season. I think they can pull it off. I'm excited to see Texas Tech play another good team to see if they can translate to the CFB playoff. I like what BYU's got going on right now.
Yeah, I mean, I love this Texas Tech team, but, BYU's also a fun squad, and it's going to be interesting to see how the rematch goes for the 2 squads. But, Jack, you have an NBA selection. Who you got?
I got next Tuesday, December 9th, the Miami Heat over the Orlando Magic. The Heat are 5.5 favorites. This Miami team has some dogs. They're currently, I want to say they're sitting at 3 in the East with Orlando at 5, so this will be a big game. Norm Powell has really stepped up as this team's leader. Tyler Hero's been playing well. Bam's been playing at a high level. Wiggins has stepped up. Jaime Jaquez has been solid. I mean, this is a roster of people that honestly going into the season I didn't expect to click like this, even though I should have. And Orlando's playing well. Franz Wagner stepped up, but I just honestly like this Heat roster and depth more. I think they've been playing at a higher level, and I think they'll be able to win against this Magic team.
Yeah, and since we only have 4 people at the table, I thought, let me come back from retirement and make an upset watch selection. It's been a while. So for my first selection, of course, being a big hockey fan, I had to go with the NHL. So I'm going Chicago Blackhawks, 1.5 underdogs at plus 195 odds to beat the LA Kings on Thursday night. Game is in Los Angeles, but Chicago's a top team in goals per game. Kings are 27th in goals per game. LA defensively is one of the best teams in the league, but they just haven't been able to score. And Chicago has scored 3 goals in 8 of their last 10 games, and I really think that's going to be the mark that Chicago needs to hit. And, Spencer Knight's a great goaltender. This team is young. Connor Bedard is a superstar of the league. So I like the Blackhawks in this matchup. But for our OU award, our SportsBeat awards, OU game and player of the week for our game, we have OU men's basketball against a pretty solid Marshall team. Of course, we previewed that earlier, a rival in the Convo. Ohio is looking for a good non-conference win, and this could be their best one yet. SportsBeat player of the week is Parker Navarro, 10 for 23, 147 passing yards with 121 rushing yards, 3 total touchdowns. Really led the way for Ohio in the season finale over Buffalo. Thank you for listening to SportsBeat on WOUB. I'm your host today, Jake Collins, and with me at the desk today was
Jack Zwiezinski,
Luke Schmitt,
Kasey Hill.
You can listen to us on WOUB 1340 AM radio at 9 p.m. or search us up online at woub.org/listen, SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Don't forget, you can follow us on Instagram at SportsBeatWOUB for more digital content. We will not have an episode next week. We'll be on Christmas break here for the next couple weeks here at Ohio University and WOUB, so we actually won't return until mid-January. So happy holidays for everyone at the table, and then happy holidays for you people back home. But we will return in a month. For those joining, thank you. And once again, this has been SportsBeat.